of color, and they call his tweets racist.
Some of us have been victims of the stain, the pain, and the hurt of racism. In the 50s and during the 60s, segregationists told us to go back.
Democratic Representative John Lewis fought for racial equality with Dr. Martin Luther King. Republicans call it pure politics.
They're solely focused on doing whatever they can to stop this president instead of, frankly, working on what can help the country.
Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, passage of the resolution led to a big uproar on the House floor, with Republicans blasting Democrats for violating House rules on decorum. The resolution reads that President Trump's racist comments have legitimized fear and hatred of new Americans and people of color. For the third time in 2 years, Democratic Congressman from Texas, Al Green, introduces articles of impeachment in the House.
Impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, of high misdemeanors.
Congressman Green says he will force a vote on impeachment sometime within the next several days. Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens has died. He was on the court for nearly 35 years and is considered to have transformed American law. He was 99. This is Fox News.
Day, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the Office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65%. For travel, back to school, a wedding, do whatever you want with the money. During July, we just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
Fans of a rising social media star in upstate New York are in an uproar after her alleged killer posted her death photos online. 17-year-old Bianca Devins was stabbed to death Sunday.
To have such a wonderful young woman with such a bright future to have that cut short is just so tragic, and I think it's touched everyone's lives that's heard the terrible news.
Kevin Markin with an organization that was helping Devins prepare for college. Police in Utica, New York arrested Devins' boyfriend, 21-year-old Brandon Clark, for the murder. One of Walt Disney's relatives comes to the rescue of a sinking ship during a yacht race.
Roy Disney, the grandnephew of Walt Disney, is being hailed as a hero after going to the rescue of another crew in the 50th Trans-Pacific Yacht Race. Disney's yacht picking up the 9 members on board another ship after they reported damage to a rudder post. Race officials received an emergency signal from that ship, followed by a message 1 hour later from Disney's crew that they took care of the rescue operations before the boat sank. A chairman for the Trans-Pacific Yacht Race says it's unknown how this damage was caused. So far, 7 boats have been forced to exit this annual event for various reasons. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
Police in Canada called out a father for using a case of beer as a booster seat for his 2-year-old.
In a post on Twitter, the Ontario Provincial Police West recount pulling the unnamed 22-year-old over, adding the toddler was unharmed. The driver charged with failing to ensure a child was properly seatbelted.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. And animal rights activists pushing to end the Pamplona running of the bulls in Spain release a video of doomed animals bleeding badly and vomiting blood through their noses. Unilad News reports the activists point out that after the bulls complete the run, they're rounded up, sent to the bull ring, where matadors gore them before they're finally killed. This is Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hafa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Did I put enough emphasis on the end of that one there, Real Joe Cruz?
Oh, I'm starting to wonder if you were upset about something, sir.
Oh, well, I am upset about something.
Okay. We'll talk about it.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the little piece I read about the Second Amendment yesterday and about gun control. And this is something I got out of Breitbart. And the title of the article is, "At least 41 shot, 9 fatally over weekend in gun-controlled Chicago." And the point that I made after reading that was that, Chicago has really tough gun control laws, and it does a really good job of keeping guns out of the hands of law-abiding people. But something's wrong with the criminal element in Chicago. They don't believe in following the law. Maybe that's why they're called criminals. In fact, I think the definition of a criminal is one who breaks the law. Isn't that right, Real Joe Cruz?
I do believe you're right, sir.
Yeah, so if a person decided just started the program and I did it already. If a person decided they wanted to break the law, right? Let's say they wanted to steal a car or they wanted to rob a bank. Rob a bank is a good one because ordinarily, in order to rob a bank, they would need to have a gun, right? So if a person decided that they wanted to rob a bank, the first thing they would probably do would be to go through all of the gun permit regulations in Chicago to get the necessary personal gun permit and then go out and buy the pistol that they're going to use in the bank robbery from a licensed gun dealer, et cetera, and make sure they filled out all the papers properly, put down their name, address, phone number, email address, social security number, whatever else. And then once they had that gun, then they'd go and rob the bank. But a bank robber wouldn't even think of violating any of the firearms laws in order to get the gun that he needs to rob that bank. And I suppose the same would go with any other kind of criminal who would need to have a weapon to commit his crime, a murderer, a robber, whatever. No matter what, those folks, would be so strictly imbued with the idea of complying with the law that they wouldn't even think about putting a gun in their pocket unless they had gone through all of the legal requirements for buying guns. Yeah, that's the fallacy in the whole gun control thing. So Chicago has a serious gun control problem. That is that the criminals in Chicago don't understand what I just said. That before they go out and do stuff like drive-by shootings or assassinations or the other things that happen in Chicago rather routinely, they must be sure that they comply with all of the gun control laws in Chicago. Well, here's a Chicago politician who sees things a little bit differently. And this is something I got from Bearing Arms, Tom Knighton. Chicago politician urges residents to arm themselves. Chicago's known for many things, but pro-2A politicians isn't one of them. And to be fair, Representative, as you were State Representative, LaShawn Ford has come out in favor of more federal laws in the past. Surprisingly, though, Ford is also in favor of residents obtaining their concealed carry licenses. I think it's about time, Ford said of the shootings that plague his community. That's why I'm working with a concealed carry instructor, and we're going to go through the neighborhood and we're going to encourage people to get their concealed carry licenses, because it makes no sense for people not to have the protections that they need. Ford's comments to Chicago radio host Man-Cow Muller. Man-Cow Muller. There's a mental image for you, right? I wonder where he goes to have his horns trimmed. Chicago radio host Man-Cow Muller came after a shooting on Chicago's west side that left a 22-year-old dead and bullet holes in Ford's car. In fact, Ford told Mueller that there were 8 shootings on his block in just one weekend. The representative says he's spoken to Chicago police about the violence on his block, but to no avail. They said they were too busy making sure that anyone who had a weapon had the correct papers to go out and chase down shooters, killers and things like that. That is not what the story says. I just ad-libbed that, Real Joe Cruz, but it's logical, isn't it? After Man-Cow noted that cops are routinely arresting individuals for crimes like this, only to see the court system put them back on the streets a short time later. Now remember, this is about Chicago. This isn't about Guam. Ford made his surprising comments about helping residents obtain their concealed carry licenses. You're right, replied Man-Cow. If the good guys have guns and fight back, the gang members are looking for victims. They don't want to die. And when the good guys start shooting these a-holes, that's what it says, a-holes back, that's when things will change. It's only been 5 years since the Illinois State Police began issuing concealed carry licenses in the state. Before that, Illinois had an outright ban on bearing arms. After the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the ban and ruled it a violation of the Second Amendment, anti-gun activists urged politicians in the state not to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. It's not that the gun control activists had a change of heart. They were worried about the Supreme Court might agree with the Seventh Circuit and establish a nationwide precedent, recognizing the Second Amendment includes a right to bear arms, not just to keep them. Sounds just like what the folks in New York tried to do, right? Over the past 5 years, tens of thousands of Chicago residents and hundreds of thousands of folks across Illinois have obtained their concealed carry license. Don't be surprised if that number grows, especially if more Chicago area politicians begin to recognize that self-defense is a human right. I think just about anything you want to be a human right is a human right, right? Yeah. Listening to tall tales is really quite important for the intellectual development and stimulation of all people. It has therefore been declared a human right.
It's a core mandate.
And also a core mandate, yes. So if anyone would attempt to interrupt you as you are listening to Tall Tale, say, well, please stop. I have a human right that I'm developing here. And a core mandate, too. Yeah. Okay, so that's the Second Amendment, Chicago style. And I would borrow one of their advertisements. I guess as far as that Illinois representative is concerned, or as far as the people in Chicago are concerned, there's a Ford in their future because Ford has a better idea, right? Yeah. Just wait till the state legislator Chevrolet hears about this. He'll probably try to outdo Ford. That's what Chevrolet tries to do. Okay, let's go from there, Real Joe Cruz. Let's go from there to Zemi Ikotny. So here we are, Zemi Ikotny. And, you know, I've given kind of the read-in on Zemi Ikotny so many times, I'm sure you all remember it, but I got to change it. Zemi Ikotny is that time of the program where I really become out very critical of the Pacific Daily News because it's supposed to be a local paper, and it doesn't seem to be trying very hard to be a local paper. Much of their news is stuff they pulled off the wires from the various wire services. They run an occasional Guam story, but it's not the bulk of their coverage. They do have some advertisements for Guam companies, though. I'll give them that. And their editorials are lately almost always stuff that they get from Gannett or USA Today, and today is no exception. What they call it an editorial page, but what they always run is... oh, they did it again today. What they always run is stuff from USA Today or Gannett News Service that has nothing to do with Guam, except that it is always bashing Donald Trump, who happens to be our president. Now, I'm looking at this one. I don't see any attribution at all, so apparently they're running this as though it were homegrown and locally generated, but it's not. And this is the typical Daily News editorial. It's entitled, Our View, President's Bullhorn. Trump's racist rants are too offensive to overlook. Well, your tendency to be a copycatter and not cover anything local is too offensive for me to overlook right here on Tall Tales. So I don't like to do this, but maybe this is the only way I can get the point across. Daily News, you got a 0 today. That'll learn them. Yeah. So much for the Daily News. I got a friend that used to refer to the Daily News when it was the only paper in town as the fish wrap. I don't know if I want to go that far or not. I kind of have a warm spot in my heart for fish. I don't know if I want to condemn them. I don't know if I want to condemn our finny friends to being wrapped in that rag. Okay, here we are with the Post. For all GovGuam's flaws, there are managers and employees who deserve credit. Here are some. Real Joe Cruz, you know how we always go through this thing about dog biting a man and a man biting a dog, right? Well, this looks like a man biting a dog. It's also the prime example of damning someone with faint praise. Here it goes. There have been instances when Government of Guam managers and employees have failed to make the grade when they are at the front line of enforcing regulations. Action can be slow when it comes to public calls for enforcement of illegal trash dumping. dealing with stray animals, vandalism, or underage youth loitering in neighborhoods looking for trouble past their curfew, armed with machetes. I just threw the machetes part in there. The above issues and others can take a while to address because of a lack of funding or staff shortages, or because other more important priorities are looming over GovGuam. So say some of the responses we've heard based on the public's interaction with certain GovGuam agencies. When someone in GovGuam does something, excuse me, I remember I'm just about at the tail end of this cough here, so if I cough, put a little distance between yourself and your headset or your loudspeaker or whatever. I don't want you catching this cough over the airwaves. I think it was Andrew who said that he has some of those wipes handy, so every time I cough, he wipes off the loudspeaker on his radio with one of. That's a good idea. Anyhow, when someone in GovGuam does something swift and enforces corrective action and we hear about it, it's worthy of a shout-out. You know, what's one shout-out every 6 months, after all? Today, the Guam Daily Post is recognizing the executive director, Cecil Orsini, of the Guam Contractors License Board, and 2 of his staffers. On Monday, Orsini became aware of a company that had been promoting itself as a, quote, general construction contractor. The license board has no record of this company having a contractor's license. The company also did not have a business license at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, specifically for general construction work. In about 24 hours of learning of this unlicensed contractor, Orsini's office took action. The license board cited DR Safety Consultant on Tuesday for advertising as a contractor without a contractor's license. The citation carries a civil penalty of $2,500. The company has since taken down its public website that made such claims. CLB, Contractors License Board investigators Janice Shimizu and Vince Uggan went to the company's office along Route 8 in Barrigada and hand-delivered the citation to the company. What a great photo op that would have been, huh? Under Guam law, no one can act or otherwise advertise as a general engineering contractor, a general building contractor, or specialty contractor without a license issued by the Contractors License Board. We commend the new leadership at the License Board for being proactive. It saves customers time and money having to deal with possible problems that may arise from dealing with unlicensed contractors. So there you have it. Yeah, and again, I see it more like the dog, like the man biting the dog. What? A GovGuam agency actually enforced the law? Wow. It's a reverse Sherlock Holmes. For once, it's not what the government of Guam didn't do. It's what the government of Guam did. Be still, my foolish heart. These things don't happen very often. Of course, you know, knowing a little bit more about the Contractors License Board, maybe these guys couldn't get a license because the Contractors License Board hasn't been issuing any since January. But I'll get to that a little bit later on. When I get to the card, I'll spend a little more time on that. So it's an editorial. It's a homegrown editorial. I'll just mark it present for today. No blue star for this one. Yeah. It's even by default. The Post doesn't win it today. Okay, so then we go to the card. And I've got a few items on the card here. A couple of them, I suspect, might give rise to the rebirth of the Salty Seven. You remember the Salty Seven, Real Joe Cruz?
I do.
Yeah. Do you remember who the prime member of the Salty Seven is?
I do.
And that would be...
You.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You're not only a member, you're the president.
The president of the Salty Seven. Maybe, how about, could I, instead of being the president, could I be the Sultan?
That's fine, sir.
The Sultan of the Sultan of the Salty Seven.
As you wish, Sultan.
All right, well, thank you very much, Real Joe Cruz, for your support. Okay, so the first item on the card here, this is what I've got on the card. I've got Therese Areola versus William Parkinson. I've got Vincent Paris versus Governor Lulian Guerrero. I've got vaping versus good health. I've got the governor versus the Bank of Guam. Moylan versus GRT. Cecil Orsini versus Moylan. This is the same Cecil Orsini. Yeah, who was decorated by the Post. I've got would-be governors versus DPW. I've got the Ethics Commission versus the Civil Service Commission. And I've got Clint versus the Day-to-Day Mayor. There's a lot of items on the card today. One is more exciting than the next. So starting out here with Therese Areola versus William Parkinson. This is something that, this was a front page story in the Daily News. Here's why legally smoking marijuana could cost you your GovGuam job. Yeah.
No.
That's not fair, right? It's just plain not fair. And it makes, and when I say things like that, people are saying, oh, Bob is so salty, right? And that's where the Salty Seven comes from, I think, right? So things get heated between anti and pro recreational cannabis supporters during a protest, and that's a caption of a picture, sorry. Adults on Guam, 21 and older, legally can smoke or use marijuana products at home. I think if I were writing this story, I would say legally can smoke or use marijuana, can enjoy marijuana products in the comfort and privacy of their own homes, right? But the new recreational cannabis law is at odds with workplace drug policies, including the government of Guam's. Guam employees who are drug tested still face adverse action, including being fired if they test positive for marijuana use, even if they use marijuana on their own time and are not impaired on the job. Nothing has changed, said Department of Administration Acting Director Edith Pangilinan. GovGuam's drug-free workplace program, adopted in 1995, tests applicants and employees for the presence of marijuana, cocaine, amphetamines, phencyclidine, and opiates, according to Personnel Services Administrator Shane Ngata. The Cannabis Control Board briefly discussed the employment issue during its meeting earlier this month. Now, we have a Cannabis Control Board. It's part of Clint Rigel's Cannabis Industry Act. Got nothing at all to do with marijuana, getting high, feeling good, etc. Nothing to do with that at all. It's about starting a new industry here in Guam. Yeah. Jobs, employment, taxes. Yeah. Let's see. It was briefly discussed, the employment issue, during its meeting earlier this month, as it approved a list of 10 facts about marijuana use, including information about the new cannabis law's impact on employment rights. The board, which is drafting rules and regulations to allow for the cultivation, testing, and sale of recreational marijuana, approved the list of marijuana facts to clear up any misunderstandings about what is currently legal and illegal. Home consumption and limited home cultivation by adults is currently legal, but selling or bartering marijuana is not. So don't be bartering marijuana. Don't say, I'll trade you a joint for a dead white rat on a string, a brass doorknob, or an apple core for all you Tom Sawyer buffs out there.
But you can donate it to them if you want to.
I'm going to reserve judgment on that one, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, the board, which is drafting rules and regulations, as you were, home consumption and limited home cultivation by adults is currently, as you were. The commercial rules are scheduled to be completed by April, which is the anniversary of the new law. Yeah. And by the way, you know, next month, I would expect on the first day of next month, there will be a huge celebration about the legalization of recreational cannabis. It will be called the August Fest. That's kind of an inside joke. You probably don't understand it. The August Fest. Okay, so we got a break coming up here. I'll be right back in just a moment.
Hoffaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Get a free Polar Pop any size when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a free coffee any size when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get $5 off any Circle K car wash package when you purchase $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, so here we are again talking about the Cannabis Control Board. We have some really stellar boards here. The Election Commission, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, the Cannabis Control Board. A little later on, we'll get to the Civil Service Commission. Yeah, if you're going to be on one of these bodies, Real Joe Cruz, try to be on a commission. Because commissioner sounds so much more impressive than board member, doesn't it? Well, Commissioner Real Joe Cruz, it's your motion. It has a nice sound to it, doesn't it?
I like it.
And by the way, how do you know that you're the real Joe Cruz?
Well, I'm wearing his underwear, sir.
Ah, I see. Okay, I hadn't thought of it. I guess I would never think of it in those terms, but if it works, if that's the acid test, so to speak, okay, I got it. The board's adopted advice on how the new cannabis law affects Guam workers. Quote, the government of Guam is still a drug-free workplace. Now here we get into Parkinson versus Areola. Board member William Parkinson, who represents the interests of medical marijuana patients and the general public, I guess that would be me, right? General public, questioned the fairness of legalizing a drug, but effectively prohibiting a large segment of the island's adult population, Gov Guam workers from benefiting from the new law. Fairness. That's really important. Fairness. It's got to be fair. And this, every time I hear that, every time I see that advanced as an argument, it reminds me of a lawyer, may he rest in peace, a very good lawyer who practiced here for several years, who would instantly retell you that the word, that fair, the meaning of that word is a celebration held, a celebration of the harvest held in Midwestern cities at the end of summer. The county fair. Yeah. But anyhow, William Parkinson questioned the fairness of legalizing a drug, but effectively prohibiting a large segment of the island's adult population, Gov Guam workers, from benefiting from the new law. It just doesn't seem fair, does it? Board member Teresa Areola, who is the director of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, said Parkinson made a valid argument, but it's moot and not worth debating because Gov Guam is a drug-free workplace. In other words, shut up, Parkinson. Who cares about what you think about fairness? Areola goes on to say, it doesn't matter what kind of drug, she said. She said if smoking marijuana is a priority, Gov Guam employees have the option of finding a different job in the private sector. But she noted private employers have their own drug policies as well. You have to be careful. Yeah, and then Gov Guam must follow its current drug testing policy because it receives federal funds, according to Ngata, who cited a 1988 federal law. So there you have it, Areola versus Parkinson. And I got a couple, it's probably, is it possibly that it's the Triple J Rangers? They've been pretty quiet for a while here. Oh, I got Jimmy, of course. You opened up the Jimmy line, right?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Oh, howdy. Let me turn this down. Oh. Hey, you want to hear a new...
What'd you say, Jimmy?
How many Department of Public Works? Okay. Did you hear one of them decided to work for free?
Who decided to work for free?
Yeah, Department of Public Works employee decided to work for free.
Really? Why was that, Jimmy?
Well, he figured he could make more money cashing in the frequent flyer miles.
Okay, Jimmy, I got it. Yeah, no sense drawing a paycheck if you get all those frequent flyer miles, right, Jimmy?
Well, that's what he said on all I know is what I read in the newspaper.
Yeah, well, you know a lot, Jimmy. You're always a font of wisdom when you call in.
Anyway, God help us all.
Yeah, well, thanks for your shrewd observation there, Jimmy. Talk to you later. Well, that's our Jimmy. Jimmy usually cuts straight to the core, doesn't he? Okay, then we got Jesse. Hello, Jesse.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good
I'm just gonna ask, what's the policy on consumption of alcohol for Gov Guam employees? Like, is there a law that says, or something where it says you can't consume alcohol within a certain amount of hours before work, or how do they even test if someone's been drinking on the job? And I only say that because, same if somebody lit a joint or smoked some or consumed some marijuana or cannabis, if they did it before they went into work, wouldn't it kind of be the same thing because cannabis is legal? I'm just wondering, I mean, they say drug, because it's a drug-free place, right?
Uh-huh.
But how about, it just doesn't make any sense. If you're under the influence of alcohol, that's not good too. I mean, if you go to work,
Well, if you're under the influence of alcohol when you go to work, you're probably going to get fired, Jesse.
Yeah, well, same with you did. You know, that's why I'm just trying to.
Let me help you.
You're under the influence of cannabis or marijuana, whatever you want to call it, right?
Let me help you reframe your Jesse. Let me help you reframe your question. I know what you're getting at, but let's look at it this way. We all know that it's not a good idea for people to be on the job under the influence of any drug.
Yes, anything, yeah.
Any drug at all, right? Whether, some people take prescription opiates.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a prescription opiate, you go to the doctor and he gives you this, that, or the other thing. But before you ever get to the doctor's office, you're told you can't drive home. You got to have a driver with you because it wouldn't be safe for you to drive. So we know that it's not good for people to be under the influence of a drug when they're at work.
Right.
As far as alcohol is concerned, if a person drinks a lot of alcohol on Sunday night and goes to work on Monday morning, chances are he could pass the field sobriety test of the cop that pulls him over. And there isn't any easy way to test for blood alcohol. It can be done, but it's not easy. Now, and as far as alcohol is concerned, the metabolites of alcohol probably don't remain in your system for any more than 8 or 9 hours unless you've drunk a lot of alcohol. Marijuana is different because the metabolites, in other words, the product of metabolism of marijuana, stay in your system for 30 days. So a person could go out on day one and smoke marijuana and never even say the word marijuana for the next 3 weeks. Go to work, and if for some reason there's a drug test at work, he would test positive for the use of marijuana.
Right.
Okay, now this has always been troublesome to me on a kind of a constitutional libertarian type basis because under our system of law, we do punish people for misconduct. Sometimes criminally, sometimes civilly. But we don't ordinarily punish them for what they might do in the future or what they did a long time ago that doesn't have any effect on what they're doing right now.
Exactly, yeah. Right.
So I'm troubled by that myself, not because of the recreational marijuana thing, but just on a general principle.
Yes, right, in the principle of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was, I would just want, that's where I was heading with that. That's basically, what I did in the past or what I'm going to do in the future, does that, with alcohol or, like you say, I go home on a Friday night, right, and it's the weekend, and I go consume some alcohol, doesn't mean I'm a bad worker or I can come to work on Monday and be sober and do the job or do the duties I need to do. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I would think that if people who did the same with any drug, prescription drug or marijuana in this case, recreational marijuana, just that's where I was just trying to say. So it was interesting that they brought that up today in the media. So that was pretty,
Well,
want to see if they're going to have that discussion. Yeah,
it is a problem, and notwithstanding my theoretical problem with the whole marijuana testing thing, marijuana is against the law. It's against federal law, and I've been very critical of the government of Guam using this ready, fire, aim approach from the beginning. Just plunging into it without sorting out these questions in a deliberate fashion, and that's kind of it's kind of a benetsu,
And then we're stuck again on if it's a state versus the feds or territory versus the feds, that kind of thing again. So so okay, then I just wanted that was my comment. I just wanted to chime in on that one.
I'm glad you did, Jesse.
Okay,
thank you.
Have a good day. Okay.
And let's see, I've got Jimmy back on the line. Wow, you never closed the Jimmy line after Jimmy hung up, I guess.
No.
Hello, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah, I was listening earlier, and you was talking about drug use in Guam.
Hey, we got two Jimmys on the phone again. Is that your twin brother, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm Gemini. We're twins. But anyway, you were speaking earlier about drug use in Gov Guam.
Yeah.
What about Gov Guam employees selling ice, buying ice, and presumably smoking ice?
Well, I don't think it's a good thing, Jimmy.
When they get caught, no jail. So if you work for Gov Guam, buy ice, sell ice, smoke ice, no problem.
So are you saying that the Gov Guam employee would be better off with ice than he would with marijuana, Jimmy?
No, hell no. Ice not nice.
Oh, okay.
Even a fool knows that. You know, I'm not smart or anything, but even a fool knows ice not nice.
Okay.
Even I can remember that.
Yeah.
But anyway, how come these Gov Guam employees can buy ice, sell ice, and presumably smoke ice and not spend any time in jail?
Well, you know, we talk about that, Jimmy. We talk about that a lot on Tall Tales and how the criminal justice system functions, and perhaps how it doesn't function the way we want it to sometime. But even I can't provide an instant fix for you, Jimmy.
I wasn't asking for an instant fix. I was asking for a simple explanation.
Well, the simple explanation is this. We have a criminal justice system that we've literally been working on for about 1,000 years, going back to merry old England. Jury trials, presumption of innocence, procedural due process, all of these things. And it's Jimmy. Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy. Jimmy. Sometimes, Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy. Sometimes I figure that you don't even need me for this conversation. But anyhow, I was saying we've been working on this criminal justice system for about 1,000 years with the procedural due process, trial by jury, presumption of innocence, on and on and on. And it's designed. And Jimmy, pardon me for interrupting, Jimmy. One of the cardinal principles of our criminal justice system is this, Jimmy. It's better to let 100 guilty men go free than to hang one innocent man. So it's good talking to you, Jimmy. Okay, let's see. I got Kellis on the line here. Hello, Kellis.
Hey, Judge, first of all, I just want you to know that when you're on hold, you don't hear anything right now. I don't know why.
I've heard other people say that too, Kellis. I don't know why that is, and I will give that to tech support. Okay, hang on just a second. Hey, Real Joe Cruz. Tech support. Put on your tech support hat and fix that by tomorrow, Real Joe Cruz.
Right away, sir. Right away.
Yeah. Okay, we got that one. I'm sorry, Kellis.
Okay, so now I'm surprised because I know that you know the correct answer why you can't fire a Gov Guam employee. Because as a judge and as a senator, I think there is a law, probably in the Organic Act, that all Gov Guam employees are sacred. You cannot fire a Gov Guam employee. I mean, they can sell crack to school bus drivers. They could shoot another police officer. They could, all these things that you hear, and they will not lose their job. Because Gov Guam employees are the backbone of the peoples of Guam for the children. So that if you fire any Gov Guam employee, all the senators, the governor, all the judges, Gov Guam, and probably the United States will all lose their jobs and they will fail if any Gov Guam employee. That's why we need more Gov Guam employees.
I think the United Nations would get involved too, Kellis, right?
Yes. You know what? I think Gov Guam should technically incorporate the island of Guam and pay every single person on Guam. In other words, so if you're working for AK, you get a Gov Guam paycheck. What do you think? Because in that way, we hear all the time that Gov Guam, it's important for them that their insurance is 50% of what the private sector pays, and then because they're Gov Guam employees, because they are the most important constituents on the island. Even though I am not 100% sure, but are they not the largest constituent of voters on Guam?
I would think so, Kellis. But let me just interject this: that you are, of course, exaggerating a little bit and overstating
Only a tiny bit.
You are exaggerating a little bit and overstating your case a little bit. I guess perhaps auditioning for the role of talk show host on Tall Tales.
Who knows? But from what I understand,
but there's a kernel.
What?
There is a kernel of accuracy in what you're saying, and this is what it is. That up until the mid-'80s, there were more people working for the government of Guam than there were working in the private sector. So conventional wisdom during that time was that you couldn't get elected assistant dog catcher of Malolo if you couldn't poll a majority of the government of Guam workers. So the pandering to government of Guam workers became the political art of the day. Well, it's not. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, but they've already.
How I have to talk a little faster. It's not like that anymore. But those so often old habits die hard. So you have a Civil Service Commission. The rules at the Civil Service Commission tell so much in favor of the employee, and yet almost everyone who's appointed to the Civil Service Commission. Almost everyone appointed to the Civil Service Commission thinks that he has to tilt the table towards the employee. So you wind up with these really odd situations where it seems like it's impossible to fire an employee. It can be done. I've done it myself, but it's tough.
But when you fired him, did it cost you almost $1 million?
No, didn't cost anything at all except some.
No, that was probably way back before there were computers, because we know that you've been on Guam forever.
We had computers. We had computers, but they were all powered by steam.
Oh, see, that's what I'm saying. See, now that we're in the enlightened age where we see that the employees of Gov Guam are, manna from heaven, and they are you have to appease their constituents. Otherwise, if you fire one Gov Guam employee, like I said, Gov Guam will fail.
Good points, Gillis. I got a break coming up here. Good talking to you.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data-to-Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data-to-Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Well, let me take a quick peek here at Facebook and see what folks are saying here. Nate horns in and says, "Whoa, we're halfway there." I would have expected that maybe at 7 minutes after 5, not at right after the beginning of the show, unless he's talking about the week. Yeah, and of course you and I, Wednesday, we're starting to feel a little bit edgy, right, Real Joe Cruz? Knowing that in just a couple of days, no more Tall Tales for the weekend. Brad Hewitt, hello, Bob. Staying awake in the great state to catch your show. I think, where did Brad Hewitt go?
I'm not sure.
Texas?
California?
He said
Texas?
The great state. It must be Texas, right?
Yeah, it could be.
And Rico, good afternoon, Judge Bob and Real Joe and the Tall Tales posse. Ted Gaye wishes us a good afternoon. Nate horns in again and makes a pretty shrewd observation. He says, he? Already starting off on the wrong foot, Bob? You remember at the very beginning of the show, I used the word he, but quickly corrected myself. I was talking about one person, and I said I referred to that one person as he, but quickly corrected myself to use the word they, since it was only one person. Jim Adkins is here. Pierre is here. Brad Hewitt again. Says that Mancow has a great shock radio show, been around for years. I wonder if folks on Mancow's show refer to Bob on Tall Tales. Probably. Probably you see some posts there. Bob has a really great talk show. He's been around for a couple of years. And then we've got Richard Leone here. How about bashing the local Dems and GOP? No problem, Richard. Whenever I get the chance, I do. And Nate Horn says, clutch my pearls. I don't know which comment that was referring to. I think probably the Post editorial where it was kudos were piled on those people at Contractors Licensing Board for doing their jobs. And Richard Leone, nobody reads about the scholarly works of these politicals, don't know what they stand for other than the Pari connections and familia name Politrix. Brad Hewitt, exalted leader of the Salty Seven. I think he's referring to me there. Yeah. Andrew Camacho, give credit where credit is due. The PDN has the best comic strip section. Yeah, it's the best comic. It's called the editorial page. It's kind of one of these inside jokes where they put these things on the editorial page, like recipes for your grandma's oatmeal cookies, and say, here's today's editorial. And we've got Contractors License Board is a joke. How does League One Terrace have all those mansions based on those flimsy base houses? It's an engineering miracle. Tom Van Engen, Tall Tales coming in, Lima Charlie. The GovGuam job situation is only part of the caution needed. So I guess Tom's audio problem didn't come back to haunt him today. And by the way, is the Tom line open?
It is open. It's wide open, sir.
All right. And Marcus McManus, Lima Charlie, this is Alpha Male saying buenas done half a day to the best talk show on earth. It's hard. Thank you, Marcus. But, it's really hard to argue with someone who seems to be so well informed.
Yes, Tango Yankee.
Yeah. James Howard, half a day judge and Tall Tales regulators from Area 51. Now, James Howard used to be part of the the Triple J Rangers, right? Yeah. And then Marcus McManus, how can I get on the Cannabis Commission? You're asking the wrong guy. I think that my chances of being appointed to the Cannabis Commission are somewhere between slim and none. I suppose I could talk to Clint about using some political influence to help me. I got a feeling that he probably wouldn't be too hot on that idea. Okay, let's break for that big halftime show that we have every day at 1700. I'm going to come back to Vincent Paris versus Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and go right on through the card.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Democrats formally rebuke the president. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News.
Every single member of this institution, Democratic and Republican, should join us in condemning the president's racist tweets. To do anything less would be a shocking rejection of our values and a shameful abdication of our oath of office to protect the American people.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as House Democrats and a handful of Republicans formally condemned President Trump's comments against 4 freshman congresswomen as racist. The president started the controversy Sunday by tweeting the lawmakers should go back to the countries they originally came from. 3 of the 4 congresswomen, however, were born in the U.S. In the Senate, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell defended the president.
Well, the president's not a racist. The president's not a racist. And I think the tone of all of this is not good for the country. But it's coming from all different ideological points of view. That's the point. To single out any segment of this, I think, is a mistake.
President Trump tweeted late last night, "It was so great to see how unified the Republican Party was on today's vote." Planned Parenthood ousts its president after less than a year on the job.
Dr. Leanna Wen tweeting out a statement that she had philosophical differences with the new chairs of the organization's board. Planned Parenthood is the leading abortion provider in the U.S., and Wen says abortion is not a political issue, but a healthcare one. The board apparently sees it differently. Wen's departure comes as the Trump administration announced it would start enforcing new rules banning taxpayer-funded family planning clinics from referring women for abortions.
Fox's Tom Rigotti, and stocks lost ground Tuesday after President Trump told reporters an agreement with China on trade has a long way to go. The Dow fell 23 points. This is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mezcla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65% for travel, back to school, a wedding. Do whatever you want with the money. During July, we just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
Iran backtracks on talking to Washington. Tehran says last night's tweets by its foreign minister that it might be ready to talk nukes with the U.S. were just meant to challenge the U.S. policy of arms sales in the region, not a signal that it wants to talk. Rat infestations are soaring in major California cities, the explosions being fed by a growing homeless population and government restrictions on some pesticides.
This brand new report paints a very dire picture about the ongoing rodent population, not only right here in Los Angeles, but really across the entire state of California. And that report is pointing the finger directly at local government officials as the source of the problem. California, they say, is suffering from a massive explosion of the rodent population. They say it's caused directly by local government decisions to ban effective rodent control methods. It's also caused by a spike in the state's homeless population, and that spike in rodents is causing a spike in dangerous diseases like typhus.
Bill Manoogian with Fox 11 in Los Angeles. And a much-loved Broadway show about pies announces it's ending its run.
Waitress will take off its apron one last time when the musical ends its run in early 2020. The show, featuring a score by Sarah Bareilles and a book by Jesse Nelson, opened in April of 2016 and earned 4 Tony nominations. It's based on the 2007 film by the late Adrienne Shelley about Jenna, a diner employee who, through her creatively titled pies and a fling with her OBGYN, dreams of an escape from her abusive marriage. Bareilles herself made her Broadway performing debut, stepping into the show for multiple engagements. Waitress closes shop January 5th. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Hoffaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Liberate your mind with laughter. Budweiser presents Hypnosis Comedy coming to Guam Liberation Weekend.
Hoffaday, Guam. I am comedian hypnotist Rich Guzzi, and I can't wait to see you July 20th and 22nd at the Sheraton Laguna Hotel.
With local comedy legend Frank Rios opening the show. $25 general admission, $35 for VIPs. Tickets on sale at 76 Circle K stations and at Coffee Slut.
Doors open at 6.
Special thanks to Community First, the Guam Daily Post, Delta Tires, Tri-Vision, and Choice Broadcasting.
You will have the time of your life.
Liberate Your Mind with Laughter is a GSPN production.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Yeah, I can't get over how great that halftime show is every day, especially the cannon fire at the end. It's really, really great. So I had a chance to snoop around the Facebook messages here during the halftime break, and I noticed just a minute ago somebody popped up this post. To get a seat on the cannabis board, demonstrate your proficiency with a weed whacker. That would seem to make a certain amount of sense, I guess. So we're going to go back into the card here. The first item on the card is Vincent Paris versus Lou. And let's see, I just lost my stack VP. I can't remember the password and the rest of that stuff, Real Joe Cruz. So we're gonna have a cameo appearance by the Real Joe Cruz once again to come in and do some tech support right here in the studio. Here's Joey. There you go.
I would have told you the password, but that's a personnel matter.
True enough. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Real Joe Cruz. I've got Jimmy. The Real Joe Cruz came in here to reopen the Jimmy line, apparently. But I've also got Marcus here. So Jimmy's already had 2 rides on the Ferris wheel. So we're going to go to Marcus first, and then I'll come back to you, Jimmy. Afternoon, Marcus.
Hey, up the day, the most honorable Marine judge and everything else. Thank you for taking my call. You know what? I was just thinking about the first time I met you. Unfortunately, I was visiting a family member at, it was a client of one of yours, DOC, when you were the director. And I remember how things really changed a lot when you were in charge of that place, and you did a good job. You did a fantastic job everywhere you went. I also was part of DOE, and you were the director there too, and so I salute you on that. I just wanted to send my condolences to one of your Marines just passed this afternoon, and I happened to be in the ER at the time, the Navy hospital, and got to pray with his nephew a little bit. And yeah, one of Guam's, Marine sons. I think he was a commander too, and it's moved on to be with the Lord. Praise God. And just wanted to give you guys kudos. Not really giving kudos to Navy Hospital because they got a lot of bureaucracy going on there. But anyway, I didn't get my script filled because, I don't know, they got issues too. They're kind of related to GMH, I think. Anyways, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Marcus. Yeah.
I'm just in a little bit of a pain, but other than that, I'm doing good too. I appreciate what you guys do and how you're educating all of us here on the island about some of the stuff that's going on, and enlightening us so that we can hopefully be more responsible citizens and do our part in voting the right people in, and maybe even standing up to some people who should be running for office. We got a lot of smart talent here on Guam.
Okay, Marcus.
Take some new blood. So thank you. Okay. Si Dios Masi.
Hey, buen provecho, Lay. Thanks for calling.
Oh, come on.
Okay, so Mario seems to be a really well-informed person, doesn't he? About the operations of the Department of Corrections and the Department of Education. You seem to really have a good handle on those things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about one of our Semper Fi buddies passing away. Okay, so back, and we lost Jimmy in the process, right?
Yeah, maybe he ran out of minutes.
Could very well be, yeah. I'm looking at Facebook here, and the cult of personality continues. Here is a very, very recent post. When is Tall Tales going to install the real Joe Cruz camera? His minions are anxiously awaiting.
I don't think budget allows for a new cam. A real Joe Cruz cam.
Well, and the real Bob wouldn't allow for it either.
Thank you, though.
Tough enough to beat down this cult of personality as it is without putting you on camera more often than we have to.
This is Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie.
Okay, so I see you opened up the Jimmy line again, huh? I wonder if, do I have one Jimmy or two Jimmys this time? Just one. Okay. Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah, I just wondered how many minions does this guy need? Even 1 or 2 minions are enough for most people. But you see how greedy Guam is? Okay, 1 or 2 minions, enough for Joe Cruz. But how many minions does Guam need?
How many millions does it need?
How many minions does Guam need?
I give up, Jimmy.
As many as they can get. But anyway, talking about minions.
Oh, minions, I see. Andrew says, when is Tall Tales going to install the real Joe Cruz cam? His minions are anxiously awaiting. Yeah. I don't know how many minions do you have, real Joe Cruz?
I'm really not sure, sir.
Okay, I could be a fan. I could be a supporter. But damn my soul if I ever be anybody's minion.
You don't want to be a minion, huh?
Hell no.
Okay. All right, mark that down on the scorecard there, real Joe Cruz. Jimmy will never be anyone's minion.
I got it, sir.
Yeah.
Unless under torture, all the rules are off.
All right.
Under torture?
I guess Jimmy could be persuaded then under the right circumstances.
Hell yeah. Anybody could be persuaded under the right circumstances if they could get that far inside of you. So that's why you need to keep little secret parts.
Uh-huh.
For yourself, for your own soul. You need to keep your soul. And that, you remember that song? Keep yourself alive. Keep yourself alive. It'll take you all your time and money. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, thank you for calling and sharing your philosophy with us on these points. So can I go back to the card now?
Oh, you can do whatever you want to.
Well, I appreciate that.
Unless you want to repeal the law of gravity. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Well, I appreciate.
You're a young man.
I appreciate the confidence you have in me, Jimmy. Thanks a lot for calling. Okay, so that was Jimmy's third call today. Jimmy did the hat trick for you hockey fans, right? Okay, next item on the card here is Vincent Paris versus Lou Leon Guerrero, and this is more actually of the cannabis portion of the show for all you tall tales, all you Triple J Rangers, yeah. And this is an article that ran on KOAM. Customs concerned over CBD release order. Guam's highest-ranking customs officer has strong reservations about the administration's new order to let in all CBD products. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, in consultation with the Attorney General, had ordered the release of seized products, saying CBDs are no longer considered controlled substances. However, she says they must still adhere to other laws that regulate them. But during a wide-ranging informational hearing held by Senator Clint Rigel, he of the Cannabis Industry Act, Chief of Customs Vincent Paris had a different opinion. I suspect tomorrow I'll be reading a story saying former Chief of Customs Vincent Paris had a different opinion yesterday. I personally disagree with it because we're doing things that are contrary to what the law is telling us to do. He said, I'm afraid to see that because we're allowing the products in right now. Can you imagine what happens if we have CBD products from China, from the Philippines? Where does it end? When are we going to protect our island? I'm all for taking a look and trying to find ways to help our people, but I say we need to do it the right way. Well, good for you, Vincent Paris. The editorial should have been about him. The Post editorial should have been about this guy because he's obviously contradicting what I thought was a poorly thought out decision by the governor, or perhaps not thought out at all. Ike Pareto, the chief of customs, went out and confiscated a lot of CBD products as they came in through the port. He is the chief of customs, right? And it became apparent that he was acting on his own when he did this. Apparently didn't clear it with the front office. And after he had done it, there was a certain uproar from those who said, give us back our CBD products. And also there's this whole pro-cannabis lobby. You know, cannabis is kind of a dog whistle word nowadays. So if anytime you hear the word cannabis, even if it's something like, let's simplify the spelling of the word cannabis, it's too hard. You know, there'll be a couple of hundred people come out and say, you can't do that. You can't regulate cannabis. So when it came out, you know, the thinking was this, that under the so-called Farm Bill, various kinds of hemp products are no longer controlled substances. And one of those hemp products is cannabidiol. So long as it contains less than 0.3% THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. That's the part of the marijuana plant that Clint doesn't tell you about as he started his Cannabis Industry Act. That's the part that makes you feel good in the privacy of your own home. So that the fact that it was no longer on Schedule 1 didn't mean that you could just freely start handing it out, because if it's a food supplement, there are rules that relate to that. If it's a drug, there are rules that relate to that. So something that went from you can't have it at all to now you can't have it, but there are no regs, creates a problem, and which is what I was telling Jesse a little earlier. That's been one of my major objections all along, this ready, fire, aim approach to things. Oh, let's legalize marijuana. And then after we do that, well, yeah, but what about drug tests in the workplace, and on and on and on. It just goes on. So it appeared to me that our governor just buckled to the pressure, because the Attorney General didn't say there's no reason that you can't do this. The Attorney General was pretty equivocal on the whole subject. So the governor's decision was, well, we wrote to the FDA and we didn't get an answer. So we're going to give all of these things that we see, we're going to give them back to the people. And Vincent Paris, to me, strikes a very responsible chord here, where he says, we're doing things that are contrary what the law is telling us to do, which again goes back to the fact that cannabis is a Schedule I narcotic. And then he says, you know, what about China? And I've read a lot of stuff about manufacturers in China putting together pills that look just like the real thing. They're the right color, they're the right shape, they come in the right kind of bottle with the right label on them, but they're made out of stuff like sawdust and paint.
Wow, sounds...
Yeah, they're just completely fake or phony or worse. Stuff that'll hurt you if you use it. So Vince is saying, you know, what happens when we get a shipload of CBD from China? We don't know what's in it. Well, you know, we've decided, well, we'll just hand it out and kind of a buyer beware type thing. So I'm going to I can find my blue pencil here. I've got an award here for Vincent Paris.
Have you tried CBD yet, sir?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Oh.
No.
It's too bad.
No, I got about as far as castor oil, and that's about as exotic a drug as I ever tried.
That's okay, because that hem shirt you were wearing the other day, that I think it seeps into your skin.
That hemp shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You seemed a lot calmer lately.
Well, you know, maybe I ought to wear it more often, huh?
I agree.
Yeah. Well, good call, Real Joe Cruz. So for Vince Paris here, I'm going to give Vince Paris an award that we've never given anyone before. I have just awarded Vince Paris the Tall Tales Shield. Yeah, congratulations, Vince Paris. You have just been awarded the Tall Tales Shield that is awarded to government officials who place a great deal of emphasis on informing, as you are enforcing the law as it's written, not the way they would like to see it written, but the way it actually is written. So hooray for Vince Paris. All right, so then we go from there to vaping. Where are the Triple J Rangers? This is vaping versus health. And experiment by experiment, study by study, the shine of vaping as a safer alternative to traditional cigarettes seems to be wearing off. The latest courtesy of University of California, Riverside. The study points to the effect of the e-cig usage as especially perilous to pregnant women and teens. Well, I guess I could try it then. I'm neither of those by a long shot. According to the study, nicotine consumption through e-cigarettes leads to a stress-induced mitochondrial hyperfusion, also known as SIMH. This condition is a protective that neural stem cells will undergo after exposure to nicotine from e-cigarettes, according to Professor Prue Talbot at University of California. Atana Zahedi, another researcher, said stem cells are much more vulnerable because they are young and not yet fully formed into specialized cells that they will become to carry out crucial functions. The flood of nicotine causes the stem cells to let other chemicals and substances in, which can irreparably alter their chemistry or cause cell death. That damage can quicken the aging process or even cause neurodegenerative diseases. Even short-term exposure can stress cells in a manner that may lead, with chronic use, to cell death or disease. The team performed their research using Vuse brand e-cigarettes together with industry leader JUUL. The brands have faced heavy criticism and even litigation. They have also come under fire. The UC Riverside study's author takes special care to note that SIMH is especially dangerous for teens. One of e-cigarette makers' favorite themes in their marketing is that vaping keeps a user's lungs safe from damaging tar that is in cigarettes. But this study shows that nicotine itself is causing damage beyond its addictive properties. Nicotine exposure during prenatal or adolescent development can affect the brain in multiple ways that may impair memory, learning, and cognition. Furthermore, addiction and dependence on nicotine in youth are pressing concerns. It's worth stressing that it is nicotine that's doing the damage to neural stem cells and their mitochondria. So I wondered about this whole vaping thing as I saw it developing. You know, from a distance, it looks kind of cool, these big clouds of steam coming out of car windows and everything like that. And, you know, when I first heard about it, I thought, well, you know, maybe it's safer than smoking cigarettes because of the tar dimension. But, you know, if we hadn't ever had tobacco, if we had never had nicotine, and we had never had cigarettes, and somebody came along today and said, I have this new program, this new product, it's called the cigarette, and you stick it in your mouth and you light it on fire. And, you know, we're going to market this all over the country. There's no law against selling it. We think people are really going to like it. Do you think that it would have ever made it to first base, real Joe Cruz? I don't think so. I think if we had lived in a tobacco-free up until now, no one would touch tobacco with someone else's 10-foot pole. And this vaping thing, to me, is perhaps the same thing. You know, it's new, it's untried. At least with tobacco, we've been doing it, you know, for ever since Elizabeth Warren time. You know, Elizabeth Warren said that when they used to have family feuds back in Oklahoma and they would kiss and make up, the first thing they would do would be to get out the peace pipe and pass the peace pipe around. So we've had tobacco for a long time. And we know it's very dangerous. But with the vaping, we don't even know how dangerous it is. And yet I see people running around all the time puffing on these electronic pipes. Okay, I've got a Louie on the line. Good afternoon, Louie.
Yeah, afternoon, Bob. Hey, just a quick anecdote to kind of put the relative dangers of vaping in the context of smoking with regards to the false assumption that it's safe because it doesn't put tar into your lungs. I just give the analogy of Joe, the bank robber. You know, Joe for many years robbed banks 4 or 5 times a year. And as he got older, he realized, you know, this could be dangerous. I could get shot. I could get arrested. It's just not worth it. So Joe decided to live a simpler life, a safer life, I should say. Joe doesn't rob banks anymore 4 or 5 times a year. He only does it 2 or 3 times a year.
Good. He's safety conscious, right, Louis?
Yeah.
I get the point.
So, you know, I tell that story to people who are considering vaping, that if you think Joe is any safer, you've made the same mistake as someone who's vaping.
Good point, Louis. Good point. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's a little bit of wisdom right here in the middle of Tall Tales, Louis.
Just thought it would fit with your discussion. Hope it helps.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at Facebook, and somebody asked the question, how about the first person to think about milking a cow? Yeah. Well, you know, the first milking of a cow was not by a person, it was by a calf.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and you know, we observed that for a long time. Calves coming to cows and getting the cow to secrete milk. And it didn't seem to hurt the calf very much. In fact, calves thrived on it. But I've never seen an animal walking around with one of these vaping pipes in his mouth yet. Maybe I just haven't been looking in the right places. Okay, let's break for the seventh inning stretch here, and we'll be right back.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
When it comes to giving the boss feedback, there can be some surprises in that process. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and other key factors to make the experience go more smoothly.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Here's Mescla's featured special for July. Kahlua pork and cabbage, slow roasted smoked glazed pork, shredded and sauteed with onions and cabbage, served with steamed rice and lomi lomi salmon. Try it today. Available in Agotnya and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
So here we are, seventh inning stretch, center field bleachers, Wrigley Field in Chicago. That means we got two more innings of Tall Tales to go here. And we're talking about vaping and peace pipes and putting tobacco in the peace pipe, and Elizabeth Warren's family passing it around when a family feud had been settled back in Oklahoma back in the old days before she got her job as a law professor at Harvard. And what I perceive as the danger with this new fad, this vaping fad, and there's a kind of an underlying philosophy of government question here that we ought to wrestle with a little bit. I made the comment that if we had never had tobacco before and all of a sudden tobacco were brought into our midst and promoted, and we did some tests and found out what tobacco was all about, would we allow it? And then the harder question is really, what should government be in the business of allowing and not allowing? If a person wants to vape and he's aware of the consequence, excuse me, there I did it again. If a person wants to vape and they are aware of the consequences, is it the government's job to step in and say, we're making all of this vape stuff illegal. You can't have it. It's contraband. Possession of a vaping pipe or the vaping liquid or whatever is going to be a third-degree felony. Is that the government's responsibility? is it the government's responsibility to test these things and require manufacturers to put warnings on the package? That was kind of the approach we took with tobacco, which is probably one of the most injurious subjects that humans can ingest right now. And it was so readily acceptable. You know, in my younger days, it was a smoking world. The non-smoker was the odd man out. The whole world was designed around smoking, and if you didn't smoke, it was kind of the Josh Tenorio approach. Well, if you don't like to be around smoke, run for governor. Smoking was so much the norm, so well accepted. Every movie star, you know, would smoke 20 cigarettes in every movie because it was seen as cool and manly and all that stuff. And then somewhere in, I think right around 1970, Big Tobacco decided we're missing part of our market here. We got to start marketing towards women. And they came out with a cigarette called Virginia Slims. And, of course, this would be very sexist now, but Virginia Slims were packaged in a very feminine colored package. And Virginia Slim's slogan was, "You've come a long way, baby. Now you can smoke cigarettes just like a man." So these things were promoted and apparently achieved a high degree of acceptability until we finally decided maybe smoking's not such a good deal, and the government turned a really hard left corner to the point where the government now actively discourages people from smoking, if by no other means than by putting such a high tax on cigarettes that a lot of people quit because they couldn't afford it. Okay, I noticed that the Jimmy line popped open for a moment, but I don't know, maybe something I said was disagreeable to Jimmy. Maybe Jimmy was smoking when he called. But I got Francis on the line. Good afternoon, Francis.
How you doing, Bob?
Good.
You know, these cigarettes, you know, they are always, Surgeon General coming out with the warning about cigarettes containing carbon monoxide, and I was wondering, wasn't that a good enough warning? And I was comparing it to my '89 truck here, and at one time it had what do you call those, torque converters, or converters where it what it's supposed to do is convert carbon monoxide to dioxide. And I was asking people, why don't you do that, those guys? You know, instead of putting that filter in the cigarette, you know, and the warning, why don't you just create or come out with something that is more like the filtering system on the car, you know, where the converter, is that a torque converter that converts monoxide into carbon dioxide, where EPA and motor vehicle inspection, like in the mainland, you know, if you didn't have in Cali, if you didn't have a converter there,
catalytic converter, yeah.
There you go, a catalytic converter. If you didn't have one, you get fined. Either they tow it over to the HP shop, you know, and they put a converter in, and then you have to pay for it. That was happening at one time, but you know, all the cigarettes has. I don't know if all of them have it, but there's just a certain general warning: carbon monoxide, dangerous to your health. But we still go ahead and buy it, you know. And I heard Louis talk about the vaping. I don't know what's that stuff, but you have any idea what's in that vaping stuff, Bob?
I'm somewhat unaware, but the article that I read said that just the nicotine itself, and we know about nicotine is a poison that's used as an insecticide on some plants. Yeah, nicotine will kill you if you get it in a large enough dose. And that's, of course, the kick in smoking cigarettes, because the nicotine changes the way some parts of your body work.
And it's still being sold over the counter.
Yeah.
You know, I think I caught something here. I wasn't wearing my surgical mask, last time I was talking to you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You got to be careful when you hear me cough. You need to kind of get away from the speaker on your phone or your computer or whatever, Francis.
You make my day, Uncle Bob. Thank you. We'll be listening.
Thanks for calling, Francis. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay.
All right. So what is this, Jimmy's third ride on the Ferris wheel, Real Joe Cruz?
Pardon me, sir?
Is this Jimmy's third ride on the Ferris wheel?
Yeah, he keeps dropping, keeps getting in line and then jumping out of line.
Yeah, and he dropped out again.
He's like, I want to ride, and then he doesn't want to ride.
Yeah, okay. Well, Jimmy, when you decide whether or not you want to ride on the Ferris wheel, we'll pick it up next time for sure. Okay, then I go on from, let's see, I just finished Vincent Paris versus Lou, and Vincent Paris was awarded the Tall Tales Shield, the first in the history of Tall Tales. We finished up with vaping. Now I go on to the government of Guam versus the Bank of Guam. And this is a story that ran in the Post. Governor to attend FSM president's inauguration in Pohnpei. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero will be leaving for Pohnpei next week to attend the inauguration of newly elected President David Panuelo of the Federated States of Micronesia. Adelup confirmed the governor, who returned last week from a trip to Chuuk, or if Jimmy's still listening, as Jimmy would refer to it, Juke, for the Micronesian Islands Forum. She departs on the 26th and will be home on the 30th. So I wonder, why there's two trips to, down to the Federated States of Micronesia here. She hasn't even been the governor for, 6 months? And I remember back during the campaign, some of the oppositional rhetoric was, the government of the Bank of Guam is the banker for the government of Guam. I don't recall that ever went out for bid. How did the Bank of Guam get that really lucrative gig to be the banker for the government of Guam? And then, of course, some of the chatter was, Lou Leon Guerrero is the president, owns a huge block of stock, chairman of the board, etc. What's she going to do with her interest in the Bank of Guam if she's elected? And the answer apparently was nothing. Because if she has done anything, the eagle-eyed reporters over there at the Post don't know what it would have been. And then carrying that a little farther, when you go to the Federated States of Micronesia, who is the banker? Is it First Hawaiian? No. Bank of Hawaii? No. Wells Fargo? No. Do you know who the banker in the Federated States is, Real Joe Cruz?
The First Bank of Chuuk, Savings and Loan.
One would think so, right? Yeah.
It's Bank of Guam, sir.
Yes, the Bank of Guam, yeah. It's not like in Wisconsin where the major bank is the left bank of the Mississippi. But anyhow, yeah, so is this just coincidence? Is this just my suspicious mind that Lou is hobnobbing with the president of the Federated States? I made this trip down to do a cookie-pushing routine with all of the governors of the Federated States. Could this be good for business, or doesn't Lou care? Now, of course, when Lou was elected, or before she was elected, actually, she stopped being the president of the Bank of Guam. She really distanced herself from the Bank of Guam. Now her son is the president of the Bank of Guam. Big distance. So I toss this out more as a curiosity than anything else. Is it just my suspicious approach to things? Is it coincidence? What's involved here? And I'll be looking at your Facebook comments here, testing the opinions of our international radio listening audience on that particular subject. From there, we go to Moylan versus the gross receipts tax. I think before I do that, I'll do Cecil Orsini versus Moylan. And this is the same Cecil Orsini that the Post thought so well of today. And this is a story they ran in the Post. Contractors License Board office says Moylan bill unnecessary. Cecil Orsini, Guam Contractors License Board Executive Director, doesn't support a bill that would allow for temporary licenses for contractors. Senator Jim Moylan drafted legislation asking the governor to call the legislature into special session for consideration or for the governor herself to issue an executive order. Moylan's proposed bill and recommended executive order would give the executive director of the license board the power to issue temporary licenses. The board would still have the authority to rescind the temporary licenses at its next meeting. The proposal and urging of the governor to help the island's contractors comes at the heels of complaints from businesses whose contractors' licenses haven't been renewed. As such, they're unable to work on projects or get paid. Orsini has said nearly 700 applicants currently are pending. But then Orsini goes on to say contractors seeking a renewal of their license can continue doing business under Section 9.3 of the Contractors License Board rules, which states that, quote, the proper filing of a renewal application authorizes a contractor to continue operation until the issuance of the renewal license of the ensuing fiscal year. He added the office's appreciation for applicants' patience. He added the office's appreciation for applicants' patience, saying they have been working as expeditiously as possible to verify the applications for renewal that come through the office. And then he goes on to say there's a scheduled meeting at 10 a.m. on July 31, where we anticipate the board will fully review pending renewals and act accordingly. Moylan said there's no guarantee that the board will have a quorum at the end of the month. The Contractors Licensing Board of Directors has not met quorum this year. His legislation states that businesses have been unable to move forward with their projects, this threatening a fiscal calamity, etc. Among those contractors who have been waiting is IAN Corporation. The company's executive officer, Karen Stortz, said IAN submitted its application for renewal in May. Stortz used to work with the Contractors Licensing Board as its executive director. She's never seen such a delay as part of the office of a member of the private sector, she said. She added that licenses typically expire in June and most businesses submit their documents early to avoid complications and delay in their projects. In her experience, a license was issued that same day if all documents are in order. So what we have here, this is the way I read it. The Leon Guerrero administration really screwed up when at the beginning of their administration, 4 of the 7 board members resigned. And I mentioned there were some alternatives that the governor could have followed that time, one of which would have been to attempt to persuade members to stay on until their replacements were found, and a couple of other things. And, of course, to hurry up and find members for the Contractors Licensing Board. Well, the administration did nothing until we're down here past the 30th of June. And now we have Cecil Orsini coming out here and giving the governor cover. So Moylan threw this hand grenade into Lou Leon Guerrero's foxhole. And you see Cecil Orsini scrambling into that foxhole and jumping on top of that hand grenade so none of it hits the governor. So I suppose this is the kind of loyalty that governors like to see, not like Vincent Paris, who said, I don't agree with this at all. So Orsini gave the governor some cover, and Orsini's message is, well, you know, you have to be patient. And we thank you for your patience. And the fact that we're 7 months late in doing all this stuff, that's not a problem. So Jim Moylan should go back and do something about the grocery receipts tax. Or if Jim Moylan doesn't like the way we're doing the Contractors Licensing Board, he should run for governor, right? Well, Jim Moylan is right, and Cecil Orsini is wrong. We don't run the government for the convenience of the folks in the government. That's not the way it's supposed to be, even if those folks happen to be the governor. Okay, we're coming to the home stretch here on Tall Tales. Take a short break, and I'll come back to this and the next item on the card.
The summer of Jeep, Compass, Cherokee, Wrangler, Cars Plus in Mighty. Your new adventure starts now. Buy the 2019 Motor Trend SUV of the year and get a new Jeep Wrangler Sport for $268 per paycheck. Or get a new Jeep Compass Sport, only $167 per paycheck. Let them hear you coming in the new 2019 Jeep Cherokee. Buy for $205 per paycheck. And get financing as low as 1.99% on all Jeep models. Come see why you'll be kicking it at Cars Plus in Mighty. Driven by you.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So, here we are. For the call to the post at Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. We're heading down the home stretch in Tall Tales, which means I've got a little less than 8 minutes to wrap up another exciting, interesting, educational episode of Tall Tales. But have no fear, we'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back here with my sidekick, the real Joe Cruz, at 1600, 4 o'clock. For another exciting, educational, informative episode of Tall Tales. Don't miss it. Okay, so enough for Cecil Orsini, who took issue with Jim Moylan, who was right on point. If you see a problem, let's solve the problem. Don't assign the problem to the people of Guam. Don't assign, if you're in business and you have a problem, don't assign the problem to your customers. And that's what Cecil Orsini did. So I have this mental image of July 31 coming along, and the Contractors Licensing Board sits down, and there are only 3 people there. Then what do? Well, we come up with another excuse, is what we do. We try to distract people from the realization that the new administration really screwed up on this, because we're 7 months into the administration and we don't have a functioning Contractors Licensing Board, which is absolutely essential to the economy of our island. Okay, so the next thing, today is Jim Moylan Day, I guess. It's Moylan versus the GRT, sometimes referred to as the business privilege tax. And this is an article from The Post. Title is, it's on the public hearing, and the title is Business Community. What is the government doing? It was the business community's turn to unload on lawmakers during a public hearing on Tuesday. Representatives from business groups, along with individual business owners and managers, packed the legislative hearing room at the Guam Public Congress building and slammed the previous legislature for making permanent what was originally supposed to be a temporary increase to the business privilege tax. And they heaped equal scorn on the 35th legislature for brushing off the restrictions placed in this year's budget that were supposed to curb government spending. The testimony came during a hearing on Senator Moylan's measure, one of his first measures introduced at the start of the bill. His bill would roll back the business privilege tax to 4% from 5% now. If we don't make a commitment to reducing taxes, we will never address where to cut, Moylan said. The tax increase was approved by the previous legislature during the cash crisis following the passage of the Trump tax cuts, but it was supposed to be a 6-month solution and not a permanent one, the senator added. For us, it's a 25% increase in our cost and in our taxes, said Chris Felix, the principal broker at Century 21 Realty Management. That's a lot of money. We ate it. We swallowed it with the understanding that it was 6 months. Then it changed on us. We'd like you to consider rolling it back to where it was. GHRA President Mary Rhodes said the administration continues to overspend even with the increases in revenues. Looking at the senator, she said, "We don't understand why you continue to not live within your means." Liz Duenas, a small business owner, said when private companies like hers face a budget crunch, they cut back. What's the government doing, she asked. I think the government should look at their expenses because the government isn't cutting. Our government continues to operate as usual with no plan in place to implement cost-cutting measures, said Joe Arnett, president of the Chamber of Commerce. The 25% increase in the BPT has not only increased operational costs for businesses, but increased the cost of goods on Guam. Bobby Satstedge, president of the Guam Association of Realtors, said the tax increase perpetuated on our citizenry was made permanent in order to allow all 3 branches of our government simply to avoid enacting or executing cost-cutting measures to eliminate profligate spending on non-essential government programs. All exactly right. A little history here. There was a bill to increase the GRT to 5% with a sunset for September 30 of this year. And I testified on that bill. And my testimony said that I gave the bill my grudging approval. My approval was based on the fact that the tax increase would sunset on September 30. In other words, on September 30, the tax would go back to 4%. And also, in order for me to support the bill, they had to incorporate a bill that Frank Uggan had introduced that gave the governor vast powers to reorganize and economize the government. And that Frank Uggan's amendment went into the bill and it passed, and it is now the law. And you know what the governor has done with all of this vast powers of reorganization? Well, she's going down to Pohnpei. I guess it's Friday, right? Yeah, that's what she's doing. She's doing a lot of traveling, doing nothing. Okay, so thus ends another exciting, informative episode of Tall Tales. The real Joe Cruz and I will be back tomorrow. We'll see you then. Adios.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Formal condemnation. I'm Carmen Roberts.